life. That you can actually change your life by changing the thoughts that you think. Because your life always goes in the direction of your thinking. So here's the great rule for success. It is that you become what you think about most of the time. You become what you think about most of the time. So the question is, what do you think about most of the time? What do you think about most of the time? By the way, this law is true, but it's not 100% true, because if it was 100% true, then every young man would turn into a young woman by the age of 20. So, the question is, what do you think about most of the time? Well, in the last 25 years, big companies have spent many millions of dollars searching for the answer to this question. Several companies, some years ago, put together a pool of more than $20 million. And what they wanted to do was discover what top salespeople think about most of the time. Top business people, top entrepreneurs. Because if they were going to hire salespeople or business people, they wanted to have a profile that would help them make better hiring decisions. So they interviewed more than 350,000 people like you. And they would interview them every week for 6 weeks or 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And once each week they would phone them up and they would say, what are you thinking about right now? And the person would say, well, I'm thinking about this, and they would write it down. 1 week later they would call and say, what are you thinking about right now? They would do this every week for many months. And gradually they began to see a profile. And they then took this group of people and they sliced them up into 10%. The bottom 10%, the next 10%, and finally the top 10%. And you are in the top 10%. So they looked at the way people in the top 10% think most of the time. And can you guess what the top people, the happiest, highest paid, most successful people think about most of the time? Can you guess? Well, the answer is they think about what they want and how to get it most of the time. Now you say, that's too simple. No, it's the key to success. Is successful people think about what they want and how to get it. They think about their making more money and doubling their income. They think about health, and they think about their family. They think about their home. They think about their car. They think about what they want most of the time, and they think about how to get it. Now, I want to share with you a word which you already know, and this is the most important word for success. Are you ready? It's the word how. Okay. So from now on, whenever you have a goal, the only question you ask is how. Whenever you have a problem, the only question you ask is, how do I solve it? If you want to double your income, the only question you ask is, how do I double my income? So I want you to say the word. Say how. Now, say it again. How. Wonderful. From now on, whenever there's anything in your life that you want to change, the only question you ask is how. Because how is the question of the top 10%. How is the question of the self-responsible person. How is the question of the action-oriented person. The person who asks how is one of the top people in our society. Everyone works for and under the people who think in terms of how. Here's a good point. Every goal that you could ever have has already been achieved by someone. Every problem you could ever have has already been solved by someone. Every question you could ever ask has already been answered by someone. Your question is simply to ask how. How did others do it? And there's a rule in success that says success leaves tracks. In other words, there are tracks to any kind of success you want, and your job is to find the tracks and follow the tracks to double your income, to create a wonderful life. All the answers have been found. And nobody's better than you, nobody's smarter than you. If someone is doing better than you today, there's a simple explanation. They figured out how before you did. That's all. And here's another discovery. Anything anyone else has done, you can do as well. If they have done it, that means you can do it. We're not talking about being an Olympic athlete. We're not talking about winning a Nobel Prize in physics. We're just talking about being a big success in life. And if there are hundreds of thousands or millions of other people who are successful starting from very little, it means that you can do it as well. As long as you keep asking the question, how? Okay. So, we find in interviewing these people that the top people have one special quality. And this is a quality that makes South Korea one of the great countries in the world today. Not because of size, but because of your accomplishments. 20 years ago, 50 years ago, South Korea was a very different country from today. Today, South Korea is one of the most respected countries in the world. And soon, if your coach works out, the South Korean soccer team will be one of the most respected soccer teams in the world, right? If Gus Riddick can get everybody working together, soon you will be one of the top, if not the #1 soccer team in the world. It's going to happen because Gus Riddick has only one question, and that's how. How do we make this a world-class soccer team? Right? All right. So we ask, what is the most important quality for success, happiness, and long life? Can you guess what the most important quality is? Well, the answer is very simple. In interviewing tens of thousands of successful people, they find the #1 quality is the quality of optimism. Successful people are optimists. They are positive about themselves and their future. They think about what they want most of the time, and they are what we call realistic optimists. That means they recognize that there are a lot of problems in the world, but they are realistic and they're optimistic about solving the problems and achieving their goals. So what we learned is this, is that optimism is a quality of mind, and you can compare your mind with your body in this way. Is you can have physical fitness just as you can have mental fitness. Now, if you want to be physically fit, you exercise physically. That's how you become physically fit. And you might have to exercise for a long time. If you want to become mentally fit, which is if you want to become an optimist, you have to exercise mentally as well. And so we find that optimists have 3 special ways of thinking that you can practice, and when you practice them, you become an optimist. When you become an optimist, you are happier, you are more successful, you have higher self-esteem, you like other people more, other people like you and want to do business with you. When you are an optimist, every door opens for you. If you're a pessimist, every door closes. By the way, before I tell you the keys to optimism, to learning how to become an optimist, can you guess what unhappy, negative, unsuccessful people think about most of the time? Well, the answer is they think the opposite way from optimists. Optimists think about what they want and how to get it. Pessimists think about what they don't want, their problems, and who's to blame. Optimists think about the future and where they're going. Pessimists think about the past and who hurt them in the past. Optimists let go of the past because they can't do anything about it. Pessimists hold on to the past because it's all they have. So your job is to let go of the past. One of the great rules for success in life is don't spend any time worrying about something that you can't change. And you can't change the past. So instead of worrying about the past and what happened and who's to blame and thinking about how you could have done it differently, instead let it go and focus on where you're going. There's a wonderful little line that says this: when you turn toward the sunshine, the shadows fall behind you. Your job in life is to turn toward the sunshine, which is to think about what you want. So here's the 3 keys. Number 1, think about what you want and how to get it most of the time. That will keep you positive and optimistic. Number 2, look for the good in every situation. Look for the good in every person. Look for the good in every difficulty. Develop the habit of saying the words, "That's good," whenever something goes wrong. For example, you find out that your house burned down. Well, that's good. You needed a house closer to work anyway. Your car got stolen. Well, that's good. The ashtrays were full anyway. You lost your job. You lost your job. Well, that's good because you didn't like the job anyway. So keep looking for something good. Now, let me ask you a question. Does anybody have in their home a dimmer switch that you turn up and down to increase the light, lower the light? Does anybody have a dimmer switch at home? Okay. Say yes. Okay. Okay. Everybody has a dimmer switch. All right. If you don't have a dimmer switch, you know what it is. All right? So you notice they have a dimmer switch in this room. They keep changing the lights up and down. The person who is operating this dimmer switch is smoking something. So he's having a good time. He's turning the switch up and down. Anyway. Here's the rule. When you turn a dimmer switch up, it's bright. When you turn it down, it's dark. You have a dimmer switch on your brain as well. When you think about what you want and how to get it, your dimmer switch goes on full. When your mental dimmer switch is fully lit, you are more creative, you are more positive, you have more energy, you are more personable and friendly, you are more intelligent, you are the best person you can possibly be when your dimmer switch is on full. And whenever you think about what you want and how to get it, your dimmer switch goes on full. Whenever you think or look for the good in a difficult situation, your dimmer switch goes on full. By the way, here's the rule. If you look for something good in a difficult situation, you'll always find it. You will always find it. You will always find something good if you look for it. And when you find it, your dimmer switch will go on full. Here's the 3rd key to becoming a complete optimist. And it is to look for the valuable lesson in every difficulty or problem that you have. Let me repeat. Look for the valuable lesson in every problem or difficulty that you have. And a couple of things will happen. First, while you're looking for the lesson, your dimmer switch will go on full, and you'll be positive, you'll be creative, you'll be high energy. If you're looking for who's to blame and what went wrong, your dimmer switch goes right down to negative. When your dimmer switch is down low, you become angry, you become fearful, you become worried, you become impatient, and so on. So your job is to keep your dimmer switch on full most of the time. Successful people are people who make a habit of thinking the thoughts that keep their dimmer switch on full, rather than allowing themselves to think thoughts that make them feel unhappy. So, I had a friend once who told me that every time God wants to send you a gift, he wraps it up in a problem. And if God wants to send you a big gift, which it means a really valuable lesson, he wraps it up in a big problem. So I know that many of you feel you have too many gifts right now. But if you look into every problem as a gift, you'll always find the gift. And I want to give you an exercise. First of all, question, does anybody here have any problems? Of course, we all have problems. It is normal and natural to have problems. All of life is a continuous series of problems. The only interruption in this series of problems is the occasional crisis. So, if you're living a normal life, you will have a crisis every 2 or 3 months. It will be problem, 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 crisis. Problem, 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 crisis. So your life will be a series of problems and crises. Which means, by the way, that everyone in this room is either in a crisis right now, or you just got out of a crisis, or you're just about to have a crisis. And that's the way the world works. The only thing that matters is how you deal with the problems and crises. So I want you to think about your problems. And imagine